So animals need to circulate oxygen and nutrients, while plants need to circulate CO2 and nutrients to every cell in their quote unquote body. So kita, we're not so different with the plants because we need kita, we need oxygen and sugars to survive. Ang plants, they need that too. First, they need carbon dioxide and water to power up photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, again, if you remember what we talked about yesterday, photosynthesis is how your plants are able to make their own food. They're able to make their own sugars because they are autotrophs, no? Kita, mga animals, we are heterotrophs. That means that we have to consume other things like other animals and other plants so that we can produce, not really produce, but we can consume their sugars. No? So, ang plants lahi, talented ang plants. And then ang plants said, they also require oxygen and sugar, because they need to how do I say it? They need to perform cellular respiration as well. So cellular respiration is being done by both animals and plants. And what is cellular respiration? It is where you take in oxygen and sugar uh, to form ATP. No, so this is how your body and also the plant's body are able to produce um, energy that cells can consume. Kay dako naman kaayo ang sugars, so it needs to the sugar needs to be converted into adenosine triphosphate. Both plants and animals, sorry. So through the circulatory system, the plants and animals are also able to remove wastes from the systems. And it is a method of transport for both the plants and the animals. Okay, so let's start with the animals first because are we part of the animals? Yes, we're part of the animals. So it's better that we learn more about ourselves first, and then I hand it in on plants. No, so in unicellular organisms, diffusion is the only way for them to transport stuff. Because they don't really have true vessels. They don't really have a true circulatory system. So for them to get sugars, for them to get food, they just have to perform diffusion. No, so this is being performed like this is being performed by very simple organisms like your amoeba kato akong storya bitaw atong was it Monday, no, atong Tuesday, katong amoeba, which causes amoebiasis. They make you vomit and poop a lot. And your paramecium. So oxygen and nutrients are circulated throughout the entire cytoplasm, so that is by diffusion, and excretory products are removed by, again, diffusion said. So that is the only thing that makes your unicellular organism survive. It is through diffusion. Kita dili. Because we have a true circulatory system, no? For us, multicellular organisms, because things, we cannot use diffusion a lot because if we did use diffusion as our main transport system, or our main transport capability, then our actions, our metabolism, our activities will not be as complicated or complex as what we have now or as what we do now. No, we are not able to think quickly, we're not able to act quickly, we're not able to run and walk quickly. So we would be like these unicellular beings na naara din ha. We just exist, no? So that is why, since we are large organisms, we need to have a true circulatory system. So blood is the medium of transport. So ang imong blood is very dynamic. It has plasma and all a lot of cells like your erythrocytes and leukocytes, and then na makita sa nimo in the plasma na say solutes, and it carries also wastes, no? So ina na siya And then intercellular fluid and lymph are part of the blood as well, and they play an important role in transporting materials to individual body cells. When you say intercellular, that means that not just a cell. So I mean from cell to cell. Oh, manaihang pasabot. So because ang blood manggod na manggod siya sa vessels, no? And the liquid that is found in your cells, what that's what you call extra intracellular. And then my throat's killing me. Kung naa siya sa vessel, that's extracellular. So sulod sa cell, intracellular, naa sa vessel, extracellular, meaning gawas sa cell. Or pwede sa di siya kining gawas sa cell, kining bahalag dili vessel, no? So gawas sa entity sa cell. That is still considered as extracellular. Okay. So let's start with the cnidarians. Your cnidarians, just like your sponges, your jellyfish. Like for example, in hydras, you can find the hydras in water hydras, by the way, in kanabitong mga freshwater, fresh bodies of fresh water. So hard for me. Nawala si Ma'am Nimes. Okay. So, like for example, in hydras, the body wall can allow the cells to exchange materials directly from the water into its gastrovascular cavity due to its short distance. When you say gastrovascular, the its digestive system is one with the circulatory system. So it's not a very complex animal at all. So, kung ano siya, iguro siya inana. If you see the GIF, iguro siya capture og ihang prey, and then it gets into its body wall. So it's very simple. It's quite a simple animal. For the planaria, like your flatworm, you can also see them in like bodies of fresh water as well. The movement of the animal helps it to stream fluid to its central cavity, in which the material can diffuse easily into and out of its cells. So again, the its circulatory system is not really that complex, and it's even like it's just like the one before. It's sort of like the digestive system and its circulatory system are in one, or they are sort of combined. No? So dili na kay sa complex animals. Now there are three major parts of the circulatory system. It is the heart, which pumps the blood, the vessels, mo na ang passageway sa imuhang blood, and the blood itself. The blood is the medium, no? So if you remember, blood is a connective tissue. And ang connective tissue nimo, kining blood na imong connective tissue, it has a lot of components and it has a lot of tasks, and that is why we would consider blood as very dynamic. No, it has a lot of uses. So you have two types of circulatory system. You have the open and the closed circulatory system. Let's start with the open circulatory system, which is found in molluscas, your mollusks, your shells, kana sila, kana inyong gigakaon, kana kinason. Crustaceans, like your favorite, lobster. So yeah, these crustaceans, they have an open circulatory system. Insects and invertebrates too. They are in the open circulatory system. They don't really have blood. Instead, they have mo nang pag open mo sa crab, if you're gonna open kanang kaon ka og alimango, kaon ka og shrimp, wala na sila dugo, wala redness ana, because what they have is hemolymph. And then ang kining hemolymph, ang ilahang hemolymph is copper based, no? Copper ang metal na makita sa ilahang hemolymph. Sa atoa, it's iron. And that is why when iron oxidizes, when iron is combined to oxygen, um, mao din ng magka-red pigment din atong blood. In this case, hemolymph, because it is copper, sometimes their blood could be bluish. It depends on the lighting actually. Sometimes kanang makita ninyo sila in certain angles of light, but sometimes sa dili. It depends. So, because of their open circulatory system, they would have a slower metabolism. That is why they don't really have complex activities. And also their metabolism is very slow. You know, mo na nga ang imuhang crab, inana na sad siya maglihok like side to side. Matod pa ni Kuan, matod pa ni Ariana Grande, side to side ana siya. And that is why your lobsters ikaw na sa maganaan na dili kayo complex sila mga activities. That is because of their circulatory system. And because of that, it requires less energy for distribution. So they don't really have like high they have they don't have high blood pressures. They have, yes, they have low blood pressures because they don't have arteries, unlike us na natay arteries. No, that is why we have a higher blood pressure. Since they don't have arteries at all, they would have a low blood pressure, and because of that, oxygen would take longer to reach body cells, and that is why low sad lang metabolism. So slow sad ang the rest, though they would have a slow digestion, slow respiration, and slow locomotion. So bale ang ilahang kuan, ilang vessels usa ra jud walay distinguishing properties. Wala siya arteries and vessels. It's just heart. Let me change my ink color. It's just the heart, and then diretso na na yun siya sa vessel. Dili siya artery, dili sad siya vein. It's just one centralized vessel, and then it naanid siya yung mga valves that would help it that would help these vessels to push blood. Hey, sorry, not blood, but hemolymph, and then it goes into the tissues, and then balik is just a heart and then the lungs. So it's not. It's very centralized, not very efficient. It's very centralized and not very efficient. So that is your open circulatory system. So we have a lot of images here so that you can visualize it. Then we have the closed circulatory system, which is found in birds, fishes, mammals, which we are part of, and some invertebrates. So in closed circulatory system, imagine lang ninyo inyong selves, no? We have arteries, veins, and capillaries. So your arteries, these are blood vessels that carry oxygenated blood. Your veins would carry your deoxygenated blood, meaning walay oxygen. So, kailangan pa siya mo adto og lungs to get the oxygen. And then capillaries, where gas exchange happens. It's the bridge between arteries and veins. Ano message? Oh. So in the closed circulatory system, naatay pulmonary and systemic processes, no? When you say pulmonary, this is the circulation na paingon sa lungs. Paingon sa lungs and out of the lungs. Ngano gani mo ato siyang lungs? Kay kailangan niya, ang blood nimo kailangan siya mo pick up og oxygen from your alveoli. That's the reason why naay pulmonary circulation. And then your systemic circulation would be the circulation nga from your heart into the rest of your body and back to the heart again. Inana siya. So, blood circulates unidirectionally. So, naa siya specific direction. And that is why it's unidirectional. So, usa lang iyang direction, patuyok-tuyok lang siya paingon sa heart and to the lungs. And because of that, because we have arteries, no, we will have a higher blood pressure than the animals mentioned kanina. Kachut lang ha. Okay. So because of the higher blood pressure, the blood will be distributed faster, sad. And that is why we are capable of a higher metabolism, more complex activities. We're able to move quickly or faster than the animals mentioned kaganina. And then we are able to have very complex thoughts as well. So, the kantag mga complexities compared to animals that have open circulatory systems. Excuse me, ma'am. Sorry, hindi ko kawala. That's all right, Aliza. If you need to review, you can just watch the video posted later. And then, alongside that, because of the higher BP, we are also able to eliminate water, no? So we can metabolize food and then eliminate the waste from the food faster. So, mo nang ang imuhang cellular respiration would also be faster because we're able to produce ATP faster than that of those animals that have open circulatory systems. So here are some examples. We have your annelids like your earthworms, no? So ang ilaha wala man jud sila kanang true heart. They don't have a true heart. Instead, they have aortic arches. Ang aortic arches, they function like your heart. They pump, but they're not as strong as, a true heart, Jud. So ang ilaha day yung kuan sa takani ang process din ani it's daghan din kaayo ka ng mga small nga blood vessels, no? And your earthworms I was gonna say earthworms. Your earthworms are able to kanang uh if you notice ang earthworms are quickly. Ayan, I was looking for the word. Uh, quickly. So they have instead of a heart, they have aortic arches. Your fishes have instead of four chambers, they have two chambers in their hearts. So kanisha. So lahi siya sa ato ano, they have two chambers and then blood travels through these chambers and is pumped out through a ventral cavity into smaller capillaries in its gills where respiratory gas exchange occurs. So this kind of circulation um my god, okay, this kind of circulation in which blood travels through its through the fish's heart only once in each complete circuit single circulation. So here it is. So your fish heart has two chambers lang, and then dili na kay siya complex, not like us nga tungod sa upat na to ka chambers efficiently kuan jud ta ang ato ang blood kay oxygenated jud siya efficiently. Whereas sa kining kuan, kining sa isda, not so much. Not so much because although nasa like closed circulatory system, their blood pressure is not that high compared to mammals, no? So sometimes na ay ka ng blood nga ni adto siya lungs and then mobalik siya gamay, oxygenate siya gamay. Or sometimes ang oxygenated blood pwede siya mo backtrack gamay. So dili ka siya inana ka efficient. But it works for the fish. Right? Complex lang activities. They're not very complex animals. And then you have your amphibians. Your amphibians such as, oh my god, I don't like looking at the frog. Your amphibians such as the frogs, the salamanders, and the toads, they have three chambers in their hearts, no? And then they have one ventricle and two atria. The right atrium receives blood. Same happen from the mammals. The right atrium receives blood from the system, so it's deoxygenated, and then the ventricle pumps blood to the capillary beds found in the lungs and the skin. So they also do, if you remember yesterday, we talked about the cutaneous respiration. They also have the pulmocutaneous circuit because they can respire or sorry, they can breathe through their skin, man. San. So because again they have three chambers, sometimes it's not that efficient yapon. The differentiation between oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, it's not very efficient. Muna na siya. So naasay ka ng ang ilang blood would turn out to be not fully oxygenated, unlike us. no? Unlike the mammals. And then we go to the birds and the mammals. Now, the birds and the mammals, you know this already, the birds, ang birds nimo, they fly, they fly, they do a lot of things. So, they require a lot of energy, dude. So, if you remember katong sa respiratory system na to kagahapon, we said that the birds have very efficient respiratory systems. Very efficient because unidirectional ang ilahang pag-breathe. It means that their blood will never run out of oxygen, or their lungs will never run out of oxygen. So the countries like air sacs for that. So in this case, they will also need a very efficient sad nga blood, or it's not blood, but circulatory system. So the birds and the mammal, let's start with the birds. Actually, the birds and the mammals are the same. We will have the same circulatory system. The hearts would have four chambers. You have the right atrium, the right ventricle, the left atrium, and then the left ventricle. So the right side of the heart takes care of the oxygen poor blood from the system. So ihang balikon paingon sa heart, and then the heart will pump it into the lungs, and then after that, pagkuha niya, pag gas exchange sa blood sa imong lungs, magkuha na siya og oxygen, balik na sad siya sa left side of your heart, so the left atrium, and then to the left ventricle, and then from the left ventricle, it will go out into the aorta and into the system. Balik siya sa system. So, in the mammalian circulatory system, the CS would have a couple of functions. Oh, sorry, a couple of functions. No, it is used for transportation. No, so it is used for transportation because the three substances are essential for cellular metabolism, which are found in your blood. No, like for example, in the respiratory system, makita nimo ang oxygen and carbon dioxide sa imong. The oxygen is essential for cellular respiration, and the carbon dioxide will be ejected from the body. So the carbon dioxide is a waste product of cellular respiration. So just to review, imo cellular respiration needs sorry, not carbon dioxide. Cellular respiration needs oxygen plus the sugar. So muna atong food. And then as a byproduct, waste product sugar, it will eject CO2 and water. And the main product here would be your ATP. No? So CO2, it's a waste product. It needs to be expelled. We could end up dead or worse, expelled. I'm kidding. It's from Harry Potter. Anyway, so the carbon dioxide will be ejected. So si blood, moadto siya sa lungs, kwaon niyang oxygen, travel din siya, adto din siya sa mga cells, ano siya nga, uy, cells, hello din. Ang cells say, hi blood, kumusta naman ka? I need your oxygen. Ano si blood? Sige, imo na ni akong oxygen. And then, kwaon na ako imong mga basura. Ano siya? Sige. So, si blood, ihatag niya ang oxygen, dayon si cell kay, kwaon niya akong basura, din ako ni kailangan. Si blood sad, i-absorb sa niya, or kwaon niya ang carbon dioxide, then siya, sige, goodbye. Ipagawas na ako ni carbon dioxide sa lawas ni Ma'am Naima. Okay. Ato na sad siya, balik siya sa heart, and then ang heart, ipump niya ang katong deoxygenated blood into the lungs. Dayon nga, hoy, alveoli, kuha na ni si carbon dioxide, doon na ko ni kailangan. Ano din si alveoli nga, sige, ambi na na, be. Gikuha din niya si carbon dioxide. Ano din si alveoli nga, hoy, di ba kailangan kang oxygen? Ano si blood, yes, atay ko na sa oxygen, be. Kuha na sa siya oxygen. Then, mo na din to siya. Inana dayon siya. So, that's basically how your blood is able to help your respiratory system, no? Another is your nutrition. Kailangan na siya. Your macromolecules, your carbohydrates, your fats, your lipids are found in your blood. And your blood acts like a transportation system of this. Like for example, if naay cells nga, moingon nga, ana si cells nga, nakulangan mig sugar, dili mi maka-perform og kuan og cellular respiration. Help, blood, help. Ano si blood? Sige, paana na ko danha, magkuha sa akong sugar. Sige, si blood sad magkuha sa siyang sugar sa asa man ang digestion, dito dapat sa stomach, no? And then the enzymes that are found in your pancreas are able to uh, absorb these macromolecules. So tabangan niya. And then, tabangan sa ni like hormones like insulin, no? So si insulin tabangan sa niya nga ang katong sugar nga nakuha sa imong lawas mo adto sa cell. Ana si blood nga, uy, insulin tabangi ko. Ano si insulin? O sige, tabangan ti ka kay bugat ba ni si ko ani si sugar? Uy, bugat ba ni siya nga molecule? Sige, I will help you. Budget sila. So, inana sad ka importante ang blood sa nutrition. And then, in the aspect, your blood is also responsible for getting rid of the wastes, no? So, ang waste na makuha niya sa imong cells, kay daghan mo dyan na waste products na makuha sa cells. Kay daghan mo siyang process na ginabuhat. These waste products, kwaon na ni blood, and yan, asa man niya ipaadto? Adto din siya sa kidneys. Okay, ada si blood nga, uy, kidneys, abriha ang pertahan, kay gidala na ko ang waste sa mga cells, gipanggamit na sa, gipang kuan na ni sa mga cells, so ini kailangan. Then kumapundo ni siya sa akong blood, kumapundo ni siya sa ako, sa blood lugar, mapundo ni siya sa dugo, na madaot ang mga organs ni Ma'am Naima na siya. O, sige, ana din si kidney. Sige, ang binabi. Ano siya. So, si kidney dayon kay, saan mo na ako ni pagpagawas? Ana si kidney. Kailangan na akong tubig. Oh, so, mo na mo, inom tag tubig. Oh, ayan. So, that's basically how your blood functions as a transportation system for all of these purposes, no, for the respiratory system, for our nutrition, and also for the excretory system. Cute kay ka story, ma'am. Adik. Okay, so another is for regulation. Your hormones are your blood is also home of your hormones. It's a transportation system of your hormones. And then naay mga hormones that are essential for like a lot of regulation, naasay hormones na regulate og other hormones inana bitaw. And then naasay hormone na mag-regulate sa imong body temperature. So mostly ang pinaka obvious ani would be your body temperature, because if you notice, if you lose a lot of blood, sometimes you would feel very cold, no? Magkurug-kurug ka. And sometimes said for us girls, no, sanay na majutaan na mawad-an tag blood every month. Sometimes we would feel very weird, right? We would feel very weird like before tadugon, like naay times nga kabalutang hapit na tadugon because we have these premenstrual symptoms, sometimes kanang grabe kita mo kaon. So pa, we feel very agitated, like we feel very angry, and then sometimes sad kay weird kayo atong mga appetites. Yeah. So kana siya that is also found in your blood sad. If you notice kanang if we have a kuan mo siya, no, ang reason for that is there is a steady decline of your estrogen and progesterone. So mo nang murag na ay change of body temperature, na ay change of mood, etc. And if you notice, for the women, for the girls, sad to say, wala apil ang boys ani, but for the girls kanang kanotice mo nga kanang naay times sa usa ka month nga mer init kaayo ta, like it's so hot, and then kanang init kita, and then we feel very wet. Ana na, ato nang i-honest ha, we feel wet down there. Oo. So, kana siya nga, lagkit kaayo sa feeling, yes, lagkit kaayo, and then, init, then you are like overheated, like you want to scratch something, like oh, ana kanang sukay ka. Um, that is the time of your month when you are very fertile. Oh, na. So kanang init bitaw kay ka, that's the time nga fertile kay ka, meaning your hormones, your progesterone and estrogen are it's in its peak. No? Asla to. And then when that happens, it will induce the release of your egg cells. So during the release of your egg cells, init kay siya. Init yung paminaw. Ayan. So, yes, that can also be found in your blood. Nangashock na talaga yung mga laki din na, sa manigi pang-ingon ni ma'am, uy, kahadlok ba? Pasalamat yun mo sa mga laki kay di mo ka-experience yung ginana. Weird kay siya. It's a weird feeling. even if even if we experience that every month, but sometimes we forget, no, sometimes we even forget, like some naka-experience sa mga na kanang dugon mo nga kanang sakit sa kanang like dysmenorrhea level, or kanang bitaw magsakit ang like only one side of your ovaries, but you have your left and right ovaries but only one side, and then feeling mo, oh my god, what's going on, do I have why is it painful ka, mahadlok na din ka, and then makalimot bitaw ka, ay bai man ko, no? I forgot. Ay bai man ko, it's normal. Lagi. Lami mahimong hotdog, ma'am. Yeah. Ambot ninyo ay. Okay. Your blood is responsible for protection. Kapoy lihok man ba sa tinuod? Sometimes we make sacrifices being who we are, our biology. Mm-mm. Anyway, so your blood is also essential for protection because your blood has leukocytes in it, which fight infections, and then it will also help us from injury during blood clotting. No, so if masamad ta, ang ato ang blood would say nga, hoy, nasamad si Ma'am Naima. Ana din siya nga, ana din ang kanang mga cells sa blood nga, hoy, platelets! You ready na ka? Ano si platelets? Yes, let's attack! O, ato din siya dito sa wound. Then si platelets, okay, daghan sa siya, pak, 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 pak. Ano siya nga, barahon, barahon ang kuan. Ang samad, no? Kanang, so inana ka smart ang atong blood, inana sa siya ka essential. And again, it will also aid us in fighting infections. So the mammalian heart, I think I've mentioned this over and over again before. We have two atria, the left and the right. The atria would be at the top. No, so dili siya makita din because these are ventricles kini siya. But kini siya blood. Ako sa i-change ang color. Nara diri ang atria na diri sa taas. Di siya makita because ventricles na makita ni. Kini din siya ang ventricles sa ubos. This one. And these are your valves. No? They pump it. Shake, 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 shake siya. Shake, shake. Nana siya. So you have valves that naakay valve from the right atrium to the right ventricle. And then naasad kay valve nga paingon sad sa lungs. Dili siya makita, no? Naasad siya behind. Na siya sa liyo. And then back into your right atrium, di siya makita because again it's somewhere here sa likod. Dili din sa sorry, not right, but left atrium. And then down to the left ventricle through this valve right here. Your bicuspid valve. And then this will kining blood na makita nimo dinhi sa left ventricle. Paingon na din siya sa aorta. Pagawas na din na siya. Shook! Ana na din. So, as you know, as you notice, if you notice, tanawa gali ni siya, no, mas thick ang imuhang heart muscle sa left ventricle. Why is that? Because your left ventricle would have the highest blood pressure than any other chambers of the heart. Nga naman, because dako iyang trabaho no, siya man ko'y mag-pump og blood paingon sa systemic circulation nato. So manang mas kusog sad iyang force. And kung mas kusog yung force, 'di ba? Kung mas kusog ang force sa ginabuhat sa muscle, just like when you weight lift and do all those kinds of things. Mudako sa dimong muscle. So that is why the muscle that is found in your left ventricle would be bigger than that of the other chambers. So you can just read this through, no? So you have your largest artery, and that would be your aorta. Your aorta will distribute your blood from the heart into the systemic circulation, and you have your kanang large veins, no, your inferior vena cava and your superior vena cava. This would deliver deoxygenated blood from the system into the heart. So ang imong superior kay gikan dinhi sa head and then paingon sa heart, and then your inferior vena cava would get deoxygenated blood from the rest of the system, from the rest of your torso. So that would be your mammalian heart. So your heart, your human heart, the human heart is about this big. It's like your fist, no? Inana siya kadako. But that's a normal heart, right? That's a normal heart. But if you have an enlarged heart, like dako jud kay siya, literally. I've seen many samples of enlarged hearts na ay ka ng hearts nga grabe kayo ka fatty filled. Yeah. Kasi enlarged hearts that are kanang ang muscle niya kay mao ang dako kayo. Those would be from those kinds of heart would be from people that have like high blood pressure most of their lives, but they're not necessarily fat. Na bitaw. And then your heart is able to pump about 5.7 liters of blood per minute. Inana siya ka-efficient. O that is the reason why taas siya og kuan blood pressure. And it is being enclosed by your rib cage, no, and enclosed by your pericardium. Your pericardium is like this tissue, this connected tissue that covers the whole heart. When it if naagali infection, siya ang una nga mo inflame ang imong pericardium. Kay kung ma-inflame dito ang heart, dead ka dito, no? So pericardium sa ang una, it's your heart. I have I don't know if I had a patient before who had pericarditis, but I've heard that pericarditis basically is the inflammation of the pericardium, which is the protective layer of the heart. Pericarditis hurts. Like it hurts like a heartburn. Like kanang mura bitaw kanang your chest feels really bad. Dili kay nabulagan ka ha, but your chest feels very warm and it hurts a lot. It really hurts, bitaw. Ang magmahal ng ganito, bitaw. So you have to be familiar with the circulation. If you ask, pwede naman na ninyo studihan, no? May arrow sad. Di na kay ka ma-confuse. But, if you're, naman yung mga questions, ani, ma'am, ka nang, is the blood in the veins blue? Anong blue man siya? Actually, sa picture na na. It's just in the picture. It's just in the picture. Sa picture na na siya blue. But what about kanang sa among skin, ma'am? Na malagi blue. Ang mga veins, kay blue man jud siya. Well, your veins are blue because they carry deoxygenated blood. Meaning, ang imong hemoglobin na naa sa blood, it doesn't have oxygen anymore. So, when that happens, nawala ang oxidized iron. The oxidized iron will be the one to give you the red pigment, manggod. So when that happens, your veins, they adapt to a greenish bluish color na yun. But it doesn't mean that your blood is green or blue. So inana siya, no? Because I had somebody ask that na nakurat lang ko. Okay, princess, yes, prince.
Ma'am, excuse me ma'am, na ako pangutana ma'am about sa kuan ma'am, na ako'y pag-umangkan nga na siya sakit sa heart. Nagsagol ang Kanang naibuslot sa tunga bitaw ma'am kanang
Mm,
interventricle septum ma'am. Nagsagol
mm.
ang right ventricle and left mount sa lugar dayon iyang circulation siyang blood ma'am.
Okay. So if thank you for that question. Insightful ganan kung mga insightful questions. Charot. Because you can relate that to your family members, no? So, for example, actually kanang mga congenital heart diseases, no, there are many types na akay buslot din he, you could have buslot somewhere else or kanang ang imuhang valves na akay something wrong sa imong valves ana anything to do with the heart, may it be nga imuhang valve ang na-damage or naay buslot sa iyahang lining, ang resulta jud ana niya would be the poor oxygenation of your blood. So when this happens, i-analyze ninyo ha. Tangtangan na ninyo, that would mean nga ang deoxygenated blood kay sigig mix with the oxygenated blood. Therefore, kini imong left ventricle nga mo pump paingon sa system, some of the blood that it will be pumping towards the system would be deoxygenated blood. Therefore, dili efficient ang iyang delivery. Ang delivery of blood from the heart into the rest of the system will not be 100% oxygenated. Now, Jamela or Princess? Jamela na lang. Jam,
Yes ma'am.
kanang have you seen sa mga results sa unsa man ni imong pagumangko no? Sakto ba ko?
Yes ma'am bata.
Uh, bata siya so congenital heart disease today ni. So kumusta man iyang O2 saturation, yung oxygen saturation?
What do you mean ma'am kanang dali ra siya kuanan ma'am? Dali ra siya hanguson inay nana ma'am?
Kanang bito inyong ginabutang bito sa finger, kita mo
Ah,
ana ay
wala ko
dry na na
kuan
mo?
observe ana ma'am.
Ay
Kay
wala
dili
pa
ko sa
kita.
magapuyo ma'am. Nakita na nako
Ah,
yang kuan med certificate ma'am. Nga ina
I see, I see. But according to your to the parents, unsa may mga kuan niya kanang physical niya nga manifestations?
kuan ma'am
Unsay
gasakit iyang heart and dali ra siya kapuyon.
yes,
Na
dali na siya.
nagreklamo siya nga sakit daw iyang heart.
Yes, that's correct. Ana dyan siya mo sakit jud imong heart kay ah aside from that no, naa man sad tay kanang naa sad tay mga arteries and veins na mag-supply og blood paingon sa heart. So when that happens nga ga-mix diri ang imuhang kanang oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, kung dili efficient ang circulation paingon sa system, what more kung sa heart pa, no? So if makulangan gali na siya og oxygen ang imuhang blood na paingon sa heart, like ang ga-supply og blood sa heart, musakit jud na siya no because um inana gyapon na siya sa kuan even the rest of your systems. Have you ever tried na kanang maminhod? Sometimes di ba painful ang imuhang ang part sa imong body na naminhod o inana gyapon na sa heart. It's painful and eventually bitaw when the as time goes by nga inana na gyapon walay improvement sa circulation, ang tissues that are found in your heart kanang the cells mismo mamatay, mag-necrosis. So, that could be the start, no? Hadlok na siya, that would be the start of the cell death in your heart. Kung dili siya maagapan. This really needs operation. Kailangan ni
Yes
siya
ma'am.
operahan, oo. It's it's fairly expensive. It's a fairly expensive kind of operation. I don't know if it's open heart surgery, kay na may closed heart surgery and open heart surgery, no. But I think this is open heart surgery, I think, because ang close kay delicate manggod kung close heart surgery, it's very delicate. Pwede na siya kanang catheter. Ini ipaagi siya sa mga veins nimo. Kini siya kay imuha man jung i-close ang lining. So I think it's open heart. Yeah. Mo rin ang kanang some babies would have like a what do you call this? A scar sa ilahang chest. So ngano nagka congenital heart disease man ang bata jam, basig ko ang jam kanang premature or ang iyang mother is old, or ang mother
Um,
kay ni sige.
bata pa ma'am, bata yang mother ay kanang 19 dili
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, that's why. And then, sa manlaga ka ng, uh, don't my ka nagkuan ha. Ayaw ka offense ang question ha, but does
ma'am.
the mother drink a lot or take medications a lot or ga drugs? Lain na kayo.
Ana ang
Drugs.
doktor ma'am kay about daw sa kanang stress shock pero may taga Xavier man ang
Ah,
sa Xavier siya nag-school. Like
na-stress out
while
siya.
ga-klase siya ma'am, oo, yes ma'am.
Gaskwela siya and then she's pregnant. Kapuya kay ano eh. Can you just
Yes ma'am.
imagine? So girls, pasalamat jud mo nga dili mo pregnant ka na, pregnant sa iyo karon. Okay. Ay so kapag ka pregnant ha kay kapoy kaayo. It's not that I have experienced it, but yeah, kapoy kaayo. So maybe that's why, no? Or actually kini mga congenital heart diseases, they are most associated with mothers that have, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, or kanang gatake sila while they were pregnant, they were taking not drugs, not drugs, kanang kuan kanang tambal. They were taking medications that were teratogenic. Teratogenic meaning makadaot sa baby. Ma'am, nakabit ka sa operation sa pag-change of artificial heart? No, I haven't. We don't have that kind of operation here in Cagayan de Oro, as far as I know. We have kay kaning artificial heart, mahal gud kay na. It's very expensive. So nara na to sa St. Luke's, dito sa Manila. Ako ma'am joke, adik. Okay. So that's how important the kuan is, no, the your chambers are, no, and also the valves in the congenital heart diseases na asay damages sa valves mo, dili siya mo properly close or open. So when that happens na stenosis or even kanang sometimes kanang delayed bitaw kanang sa imong labdab, tugdug tugdug, di ba inana, the dugdug sound is just your valves opening and closing, tugdug tugdug ana. So ay pangita ato ana tugdug tugdug. So it's like tugdug tugdug. Oh. At inana lang ang tingog sa ato because we use this that yes pa jam. Okay, no problem jam. I hope you na linawan ka ana, no, na congenital heart disease. So, medyo pronounced ang sound sa love dub because we're using like stethoscopes, and the stethoscope is able, stethoscope meaning katong ginabutang bitaw sa ear kanang ginadala-dala sa mga nurses and doctors. Gina-amplify man gud niya, no? But in actuality, kanang kung dili i-amplify, actually ang sound sa love dub is like pluk 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 ana din na siya, mura siya kanang the closing of the valves ra jud, no? So if dili siya mo close og tarong, maybe because of stenosis or other reasons, or congenital heart disease kung inana, dili sad mo properly flow ang blood nana. So when the blood doesn't properly flow, nasa improper oxygenation of blood or low supply of oxygenated blood, mo na siya ang resulta. So yeah, that's how important your heart is. It's very important as a pump. I'll not talk about that anymore. So I will just let you read this part right here because we'll move on to the next part. Labi na sa steps, no? You can just read through the steps, or if visual learners mo, you can just look at this photo and then look at the arrows, no? So from the superior, let's erase this first. Where's my cursor? Let's use yellow na. So let's start from sa imong heart, sa imong right side ha. You have your superior vena cava, and then your inferior vena cava, your inferior I can't spell. Your inferior vena cava and your superior vena cava will deliver deoxygenated blood that has been through the system na, into the right side of your heart through the right atrium and then down to the right ventricle. Then your right ventricle will deliver the deoxygenated blood sa imong lungs, no? Kini nga direction. So towards your lungs, between two lungs. Ana. Usa yung buhaton sa lungs, adto siya sa alveoli, kay naa dato ang mga capillaries. Dadto siya mag-gas exchange. And then the blood will then go back. Balik sad siya. Uy, gikan na siya dinhi. Okay. So, let's go back. So, kini siya, kining right ventricle into the lungs, muagi ni siya sa imuhang pulmonary, dili maklaro no, sorry, kay yellow siya. Pulmonary vein. Ah, sorry, not vein. Artery. Ma'am, nga no, artery man, ma'am, nga deoxygenated blood man iyahang ginadala. Pulmonary artery siya kay ang imuhang lungs, ang kini siya nga vessel kay paingon man siya sa organ. So mo nagikuan siya. Gitawag siya artery. But actually, do not be misconstrued ang kuan. Ang iyang ginadala is deoxygenated blood. So pagbalik ni blood gikan sa lungs, sumuagi din siya sa pulmonary vein. Ana. Dayon, agi din yun siya sa left atrium. Ayan. And then the blood will be pumped to your left ventricle. And then sa left ventricle, ang dugo, oxygenated naman na siya, ato na din siya sa system. That will be towards your aorta. Ayan. Then kana din yung aorta all throughout the system. So that is basically your circulation in your blood, in your heart. So you can just read through this. Gusto mo ka ng narrative, Jude? Okay. So, question. What creates the sound of the heartbeat? Ako na nang mention ganina. But what creates the sound of the heartbeat? You can answer in the chat box. Loba ta daw akong kuan, drawing tablets. Anybody? Palingin nag-answer. Answer mo ay. Ang pag-open o close sa ventricles, matod pa ni Lee, okay? Si Ildefonso, valve, yes, yes. What happens to the valve? Nagunsa ang valve? Blood flow, the pumping of blood, ma'am. The close open, matod pa ni Ildefonso, close open of the valve. Okay. Any other answers? Pag-pump sa valve, ma'am. Yes, yes. Mabel. Nanong Mabel dito ko maingon? Because I used to have a friend. Lain na kayo. I used to have a coworker named Mabi. Then, ang pag-pronounce sa iyang Mabel kay Mabel. So, mato Mabi. Pag-pump sa valve, ma'am. Actually, si Ildefonso is correct, no? It's the open and the closing of the valve. Actually, ang pag-pump sa imong heart, wala man na siya sound. Pag-pump niya, wala man kay... like, for example, the pumping of the heart is the same... It's the same action as when you're flexing your biceps. Kung magkuan ka, weight lift ka. Nakay madunggan na sound? Wala kay madunggan na sound. So, the pumping... that's not the lub-dub. The lub-dub is the closing and the opening of the valves. Katong valves na mitral and bicuspid valves, no? Ay, tricuspid and bicuspid valves, ana. So kana sila tuk 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 ana mas tuk tuk, they're always in unison, no? Tuk 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 tuk. So kana siya ang lub-dub. Okay? It's the opening and closing of the valves. Ano? Ma'am, asa ang valve sa illustration sa heart ganina? Okay. Go back. Ayan. Nara ang gamit ko glide color ha kaya para makita ninyo. Ayan. Ay, blue. Di siya maklaro. Bugak. Let's use green. Okay. Kanisha, this one right here. These are your valves. Your tricuspid. Tricuspid, kitulo man siya kabuok. Ako ipakita sa unya ha. And this is your bicuspid. Kanisha. Chuk. Layon. Chuk. Ayan. Those valves right there. Kana siya. That one. Ma'am, ano na? Okay, ma'am. O, kana siya ng valves. Mag-close open na siya. Gitawag siya tricuspid o bicuspid kay nani mo siya itsura o. Ang tricuspid is it looks like this. Na siya tulo ka leaflets, no? Kung bicuspid ha lang. Mersyo na. Can you just imagine having this kind of mouth? Oh my God, it's weird. Okay na to, Lee. Wala na questions. Yeah, can you just imagine? We're alien. Gadungan na sila tanan, ma'am. Yes. They are in unison. Kung dili magdungan, that's heart disease. Naay something wrong sa heart dayon. Naay ina na nga sakit. Kung dili magdungan. Clear the ma'am, hehe. Wala na ma'am, hehe. Yes, naansiran ti ka Aldefonso, no? Yes. Yes, sila. Kung di sila magdungan, naay something wrong sa imong heart. Dili siya magpampog tarong. Kung di siya magpampog tarong, dili siya mag ang oxygenated blood mo dili siya matarong o distribute. So nana siya, that's the effect. So what is the sequence of the heartbeat? Okay. So ang imong heart, okay, your heart, how does it pump or why does it pump? Because it has electrical impulses. No, it has nodes. So ang imong heart naa siya duha ka nodes na ay SA node or sinoatrial node. Mo na siyang pinakauna nga mag-signal sa kuan sa imong heart nga oy pump ta ana. And then dinhi dayon would be your AV node or your atrioventricular node. And then, kinida yung fibers dinhi, these are your bundle. This is your bundle of His. Okay. So, unsa may tabuan ni? Ang heartbeat mo start siya with your SA node, no? This is one. Kini siya na diri ang SA node na. So, mo kwan siya, mag-initial siya og tuk. Dayon kini ding signal mo cascade din siya paingon sa AV node. So your AV node is found here. Mukuan na siya gamay. Danha, and then the peak na dayon. So ang peak nimo na diri ang bundle of His. So from SA node to AV node and then your bundle of His. Bundle of His. The bundle of His would take in like the how do I say it? The brunt because siya man ang responsible sa pag-contract sa imuhang ventricles. Siya ang mag-close. Kaya kung wala na siya, dili mag-contract imong ventricles. So, dili ma-pump ang blood, no? So, mao na ang kanang kung makita kag ECG, electrocardiogram, kanang ECG reading, mao na imo pag-interpret ana, no? So, diri ang peak, so mao na siya ang pag-contract sa imong ventricles. Munaog na sad na siya, that will be your S point. And then, mag-start na sad dayon siya og initiate og pumping. So balik-balik din na siya, chuk, then chuk, ana. And then naasay points of kanang ko ano, naasay what you call as arrhythmias. Oh. Meaning kanang abnormal nga pag-pump sa imong heart. So kung abnormal gani siya, naanay something wrong sa imong sinoatrial node. Oh, naanay something wrong, dili na siya mag-initiate og pump. So if naay something wrong, maunang ka ng mga very common siya sa mga old age, ka mga lola, lolo nato, no? And that is why some of them would be recommended to be operated on and butangan sila og artificial nga pacemaker. Muna na sila. And muna din ni siya if if madami siya gali ni siya, Ang AV node na lang ang magdala og what you call this, og pumping. So si AV node na lang. So inefficient na siya. So ang imuhang atrium di na siya gatarong og pump ani nga time. Now what if kini na lang ang nabilin jud? Ana si AV node, di ka po nako ayoko na ana si AV node. Ang bundle of his na lang jud. Siya na lang ang pag-asa. Kung ang bundle of his na lang, mo na din na siya makakita kag mga ventricular nga arrhythmias. This is very close to death already. So if inana nagali kato kung giingon kanina katong VFib o VTAC, that's ventricular fibrillation, meaning uh mo start to kag VTAC no, kung ventricular tachycardia. Tachycardia means tachy means fast, and then cardia means pulse rate. Okay. So, or heart rate. So, taas na gali kaayo imuhang heart rate sa ventricular part sa imuhang heart. Ang ventricles na lang nimo ang tug imong atrium wala na. So, ang feeling ano sa pasyente kay wala na jud, marang wala na siya pag-asa. And then, kung ka-give upon na jud ang imuhang bundle of his, mag-fibrillate na din na siya. Ano nag-fibrillate? Kung makita na nimo sa ECG, di ba ang normal nga form kay PQRS man, ana, oh my God, pagita sa drawing ay. Ang fibrillation is like that. Ana. There are kanang electrical pulses nga koan na. Dili na siya target, dili na siya focused. So nag-fibrillate na imong heart kay gana na wala na siya kasabot. Then na dayon ka mag CPR, or even as early as ventricular tachycardia, na ka mag CPR o mag defibrillate. So ignayin niyo ang mga kuan ha. Ignayin niyo ang mga friends na sig pananaw ng mga medical drama. So mana maooy ana char. So that is the sequence of the heartbeat. And then in a human adult, what is a normal cardiac rate in beats per minute? Lagi ma'am katong mahadlok siya mo patay na ma'am. Ha? Unsa ni Mike? Lagi ma'am ka. Ay, paano ni? Paano ni siya? Rurouni Kenshin. Okay, yes. What is the normal cardiac rate? Kung gagahapon, ang normal respiratory rate is 12 to 20 cycles per minute. How about the humans? How about the humans? How about the cardiac rate? Any idea? Just give us a guess if mo kabalo.
60 to 100 beats per minute, ma'am.
Okay, in a normal adult, no? Yes, that's correct. So in a normal human adult, that's around 60 to 100 beats per minute. So that's normal. If you go less than 60, that would be bradycardia. Brady means slow. Okay. If it's more than 60, it's more than 100, that is tachycardia. Tachy meaning fast. Ayan. So those are, or that is your range for normal heart rate in adults. So your blood has multiple it has multiple cells in it. You have your blood cells like your monocytes, lymphocytes, and etc. But so basically, naana siya two general types. You have your erythrocytes and leukocytes. So your human blood is composed of 55% plasma, 44% of red blood cells, 1% white blood cells, and then platelets. Are platelet cells? No, these are not cells. These are just protein. Is it protein? It's just, kanang kuan siya kanang leftover protein, but it's very essential in clotting. So, I didn't ako na-discuss because we already talked about that kaganina. And then, your plasma components. Plasma is very important because it has water. So, it's basically made of water. So, maunang, if, maunang importante sa kay mag-rehydrate, no? If you have dengue, kung magka-dengue ka, maunang one of the treatments or one of the interventions when you have dengue is to rehydrate. inom ka daghang tubig or inom ka ganang Gatorade. Oh, so nana siya. And then very important component niya is the proteins, and then just 2% is solutes. Importante kayang proteins because your albumin, number one, is responsible for osmotic balance, meaning your albumin, which is the protein very much found in your plasma, it will enable your blood to stay inside the vessel, in the blood vessel. Kay kung walay albumin, ang blood nimo, remember your blood vessels are permeable. So ang blood nimo pwede na siya mugawas from the vessels, no? This is what happens when you have burns. Excuse me, ma'am, the left sa pa siya. Okay lang. Okay, when you have burns, kanang bitong nasunugan ang inyong skin. So madamage man na ang imong vessels, no? And then sometimes mawala imong albumin, imong plasma. So when that happens, mag-dehydrate ka, ma-bleed out ka, mag-dehydrate pa jud ka. So mo nang kanang people with like very extensive burns, like second degree, third degree burns, what is prescribed to them is not necessarily a transfusion of whole blood. Ang gina-require sila would be a transfusion of plasma. Plasma lang ang gina-transfuse because importante yan na kay mabutang slag albumin. And then your globulin, which is essential in your immune system, and your fibrinogen, which is essential in blood coagulation. Functions ni plasma, no? So dakan siya trabaho. And then it also carries food nutrients from the systemic circulation, and then it transports hormones and antibodies, and also carries nitrogenous waste to the kidneys and carbon dioxide to the lungs. Nitrogenous waste is a waste product produced when you when you metabolize protein. Nana siya. So, usually not usually, but kung mapundo ang nitrogen na sa mong lawas, may siya ammonia. And we don't want ammonia in our lawas. No, it's poisonous. And then you have your erythrocytes. Basically, mong erythrocytes, they have lifespan of 80 to 120 days. And it is very essential because ang erythrocytes nimo ang mag-carry sa hemoglobin. And hemoglobin has iron. Then iron loves to bind with oxygen. So maon nang red imong blood, and at the same time, ang iron, mag-capture siya sa oxygen. Ang oxygen, madala siya sa whole body system. And then your white blood cells, also known as your leukocytes. So it is very essential in fighting infections because it will produce antibodies, and it will have differentials of your WBCs. You have many types of WBCs, by the way, just for your information. You have your granular and your non-granular. Ang pasabutaan ng granular, non-granular kay sa ilang cytoplasm na ay granules na makita. Monong granular. Ang uban dayon kini monocytes and lymphocytes, they don't have granules. That's just the difference. Mura na lang difference. So you have different differentials of your white blood cells, like your neutrophils. They are very common type of leukocytes. Sila ang pinaka-abundant danha. And then your lymphocytes, your T lymphocytes, your B lymphocytes are able to produce your antibodies, and your T lymphocytes are able to produce your killer T cells. Sila ang mapatay sa cell jud mismo. So, lymphocytes din mo ang pinaka-powerful among sa ilaha. Your monocytes, they produce macrophages. Your macrophages are the first to respond sa kanang infection. Sila ang mag-huwap, sila ang mukaon, huwap, sila sa kanang mga foreign bodies. And then, sige lang, ayaw mo kabalaka because we'll be talking about the differentials tomorrow sa Monday sa immune system. Your eosinophils, which are essential in the inflammation of your body. And then your basophils, which release histamine and heparin. Kanisha, ang basophil and eosinophils, they work hand in hand together because they are present in inflammations. So mo ni siya ang mong differential. You would find this if ever ka nang ma-admit ka, or you have to kanang magpa-lab ka o inani ang usually makita ninyo, 'di ba? So I'll not talk about this because we'll be talking about this tomorrow on Monday. And then you have your platelets, or aka your thrombocytes. They help in blood clotting. They're not really true cells because they're just fragments of your megakaryocytes, no? So wala silang nucleus and can be broken down in the blood, but they're very essential because in case you bled, siya ang mag-cover sa katong bleeding site. Oh. So what happens if wala platelets? Mo na ka ng dengue, bitaw ka na mubo kay ang platelet. They're very prone to bleeding. Very, very prone to profuse bleeding. And they might die because of bleeding. Oo. So I'll not talk about that anymore. So, and this too. So you can just look at the comparison between closed and open circulatory systems. Okay, question. Where is blood made? Blood? Blood? Anybody? You can answer in the chat if maulaw. I want to see new names sa sad na mo pop sa chat. I want new names. So, Mother ni Joseph, bone marrow, ma'am. Nikian sad. Okay. Mabel, bone marrow. Okay, correct. Blood is made in the bone marrow. Your bone marrow is very essential because that's where blood is made. Inana siya ka-important. And that is why those people with what do you call this? Kind of cancer of the blood, they would need like bone marrow transplant. There was a there was a documentary that I watched. I think this was last week because there's this YouTuber, Kyle Hill. I've been following Kyle Hill. I don't know. Yung pangalan kay Kyle Hill. Where's it? Kyle Hill. I've been following Kyle Hill since he was in The Nerdist. I don't think naapay The Nerdist karon. Kanang The Nerdist ko ana siya YouTube channel na siya nga it talks about like nerdy stuff like comic books and anime. Basta yun na siya. And then one of the people behind the Nerdist is Kyle Hill, and I loved it because he talks about the science behind comic book characters and the powers that they have. And then Kyle Hill, I think he let go of learning how siya sa the Nerdist, and then he became a YouTuber himself. But his stuff nowadays are kanang dili na siya nerdy. Dili siya nerdy. No, no, no. It's very nerdy because ang yung gina-talk about nowadays would be kanang radiation and nuclear nga mga incidents. And there was one incident which really I did not forget. There was an incident na kanang naay usa ka physicist. I forgot asa ni siya nga na nuclear laboratory no na. There was an accident that happened, and then the ionizing radiation from plutonium ning pierce sa iyaha. So bale he took the whole brunt of the radiation. And then, of course, because he's surrounded by scientists, these scientists convinced him na why don't you kanang let us examine you, and so of course he was kamatyunon naman siya, no? So ano siya, sige, just examine me. And then they discovered nga when they were extracting his bone marrow, because the scientists wanted to examine kung ga-produce ba siya white blood cells and red blood cells. They discovered that the bone marrow, instead na solid siya, because it's semi-solid manggod atong bone marrow, instead na semi-solid siya, it was jelly. It was jelly. So can you just imagine if you were exposed to ionizing radiation even for a very short amount of time, but the dosage of it, grabe iyang exposure, it is powerful enough to make your bone marrows jelly. Muna siya jelly. Dili siya mawala sa kung sa akong brain because there were actually photos that were published on this. And then like makita jud mo like naa jud comparison sa normal bone marrow and then the bone marrow that has been through ionizing radiation. So na naka dangerous ang ko ano when you play with radioactive na materials, no? Grabe kay siya kahadlok. Okay. So, yeah. So, can you just imagine, like, sa una nga, wala pa ta kabalo nga radioactive din na sila ng mga elements, no? And we were playing with them, like si Marie Curie. Do you know Marie Curie? Do you know her? Marie Curie, the scientist. She and her husband discovered radon, the element. They did not, kato nga time, check lang sa tagamay ha. Pero kung ano siya nga check ka ng science related. During that time, nilang Marie Curie and her husband, they didn't know na katong radon kay radioactive or wala pa jud na siya nga concept ang radioactivity. Wala pa na siya nga concept sa una. So they just knew that it glowed, no? Na siya glow. Tsada kay siya tanawon kay glow in the dark siya. So they were examining it, and then they eventually discovered na they started getting sick. Then eventually they discovered na oh it's radon that's making us sick. Then came the discovery of radioactivity. So grabe kay no at the expense of these scientists' lives nakadiscover ta ng radioactivity. So can you just imagine? There was also one incident in I forgot where it was. Basta somewhere in South America. Nga there was a miner as in miner kanang mina. Nakita siya og large chunk of metal nga glow. Amazed kay siya. This is a true story by the way. This happened in the 60s or the 70s. I'm not sure. Either of those decades. And then glow na amazed mo kay siya glow siya. So yung gidala sa balay. And then iyang gipakita sa iyang family, iyang gipakita sa iyang mga neighbors. And then because it's a small town, they thought nga uy kanang kuan ni siya grasya ni siya sa Ginoo. So they took like little chunks of the metal then murag bitaw gihimo lang anting-anting ana. And then people were starting to get sick. But then even though people were starting to get sick, they didn't really associate the sickness to the metal. Wala sila nag-associate. Wala, Jud. Sige, tapos like, ampo atong glow in the dark na metal. Until, ning spread siya. Not only in that small town, but ning spread siya in a neighboring town. And then, people were going to the hospital. Dayon, kanang and then the doctors are very appalled. Small town hospitals, they're not really that knowledgeable about stuff. So ano sila nga kanang naunsa mo then ano sa nga mo niya kung simptomas hala na asad ko nakuha na encounter ana before. Ana din tong pasyente nga feeling na ko kay tungod ni siya sa kuan sa kanang metal. So unsa nga metal dala daw din higi dala sa ospital ang metal o di ba? Ang glow in the dark metal. So daghan na sad kay nagka-radiation sickness ito. Basically the doctors that handled those cases, they all died. No? So grabe ka. Anyways, so ina naka amazing radioactivity. Ngano nakaabot na tungod sa bone marrow. Okay. So, question, what structure of the veins prevent the backflow of blood due to gravity? Time check, it's 9:41. Sige na, mahuman lagi nato ni. What structure of the veins prevent the backflow of blood due to gravity? So, di ba ang artery kay kanamo tungod kay gadali man atong lawas nga maka-receive og oxygen mao nang paspas ang blood pressure sa imuhang arteries. But what about your veins, no? Dili man paspas ang blood pressure dan hapangon balik sa imong heart. So, unsay structure kuno daw sa veins ang maka-help sa iya nga dili mo balik ang dugo panaog. Like for example, very specifically kanang imong inferior vena cava, no? Saan man niya nga para dili mo balik ang blood. Any answers? Wala answer? Ay, pa din ako nanaog, sorry. Okay. Ala naman na yung mga message na yung si Joseph, if sa fried chicken paa ma'am, basta naabukol nga murag na ay dugo kay hilaw. Really? Ah, yes, oh. Pero mabalaman mo na hilaw ang chicken, uy, kay duguan pa mo jud na siya. Yes, ma'am, about sa elephant to ako nakita, pang bright kaayo, di ko carry. Okay, that's correct, no? These are your venous valves. So, importante ang venous valves because they prevent the backflow. So, dili siya, pag open niya ana, i-open niya, mo flow ang blood pasaka, then i-close din niya para uh, dili magka backflow. So, if na din something wrong, ana, like naay backflow na noon, mao din na siyang naatay spidery veins or what we call as varicose veins. Ay, wrong spelling. Sorry. So, inana siya. Labi na kung forever tindog ka, imong valves ana kay mag-struggle na siya, no? So, sometimes imong valves kapuyan man sa na siya. So, manang ka ng kapuyan siya, di na ko ma-open, na ko mo-close na siya. So, muna nang mag-backflow din imong dugo. Now, next question. What would likely happen if the heart will not pump blood properly? Actually, gi-answer na nato ni kaganina katong sa congenital heart disease kung naay separation kung naay buslot sa imong heart or naay something wrong sa iyang valves or naay something wrong sa pagpump. So, di na ako ipa-answer sa inyo. But what would likely happen if the blood will not pump properly? Dili mahatagan og oxygenated blood og tarong na oxygenated blood ang imuhang organs, no? So sometimes madaot ang imong organs and then eventually it will lead to organ failure. Ang pinakauna jud ana niya usually would be your kidneys. Kay sila may pinaka-south, sila may pinaka-ubos. So, ang concept mo ko ni kay, kung mas ubos ka, mas hinay ang imong perfusion or mas hinay mo abot dito imuhang blood. So, usually, mag-start na siya sa kidneys mo nang dali na kayo magka-kidney disease. Acute renal failure or chronic renal failure. Pili lang kung sa imong gusto. Char. So, that's what would likely happen. Okay, now let's proceed to the plant transportation system. Kini siya, dali ra ni siya kay you know about the concept of phloem and xylem already. So basically, ang atong transport system, main transport system would be your phloem and your xylem. So if you're going to look at a cross section like imong gihiwa ang kahoy, then imuha nang itanaw ng microscope, it would look like this, no? Kini sila ng mga buslot-buslot, mao ni sila imong xylem and phloem. Remember, xylem will transport water primarily ha, and then your phloem will transport your sugars primarily. But actually, imong phloem kay gakuan sa di siya water. Transport sa di siya water, pero dili na mao iyahang main nga task. Okay? So if you're going to look at this, kini siya nga picture diri sa right, makita nimo it's a GIF, no? So in a stem or in wood, no, naakay ka ng cortex pa nimo. Mo ni ang protective layer. And then ahead na dayon ang imuhang xylem and phloem separated by your core cambium or your cambium. Kini siya, that is why kung ma-chip off niya nga part, kini bitang sa kahoy lugar, i-chip off lang nimo gamay, dili na siya dali mamatay. Pero kung maka-reach na ka sa kaning ma-damage nimo ang phloem and ang xylem ana sa kahoy, mamatay ang kahoy ana. So, wala na din siya transport system. Mura ko kitagod kung masama dato ang artery kanang like literally kanang dako jud na artery which supplies a lot of blood to our system. Matay ta. Diritso. Sa walay pagduha-duha. So I'll not talk about this anymore, Kinishad. Ato ta sa kwan ha. Ato ta ani. There are three theories that will explain the transport mechanism of water among plants. So we will focus on the xylem muna. So natin three theories, and that is your root pressure, your capillary action, and your cohesion tension. Your root pressure, kini siya nga, ay, wala may siya nga picture. Pero kini ikaduha, ay kini siya, the capillary action is like this one. I think you had this in junior high or even in grade school before, wherein inana inyo experiment no or kanabitong flower dayon gusto ka imong flower kay color blue, so kanang puti ng mga flower i-soak nimo siya uh, sa kanang blue water, dayon eventually ang kuan nimo ang blue water kay mosaka pa ingon sa petals, so inana siya no, that's capillary action. So let's start with root pressure sa. So root pressure, it says nga kanang cells in roots actively pump water ions into the xylem tissue, causing a change in the concentration gradient. So water moves to the xylem via osmosis. So imong roots mismo kay gakuan, ga-absorb og water from the ground, and it uses osmosis. It's active transport. So kuan siya no kanang it uses a lot of energy to do that. And with that, makita na din nimo sa imong leaves nga ngano nagtubig-tubig maning leaves. Ano na bitaw? Well, aside from the dew, DEW, that is because of guttation. Okay? So, guttation is a product or a byproduct of root pressure. Or the root pressure that is essential in water absorption. And then you have your capillary action. So it makes use of the water's adhesion property. So di na ko na-explain. Kaya kuan makay obvious na kay siya. Oh. And then your cohesion tension. The cohesion tension is like this, no? So naa kay adhesion and then cohesion. As you can see here kini sa picture nga kining cute kayo na kaning HO2, no? Ang imong water, usa sa mga kuan ana niya, usa sa mga properties of water is because of its hydrogen bonds, ganahan na siya mo adhere sa surfaces. No, ganahan na siya mo stick sa surfaces. That is why kana bitong magbutang bitaw kag bugnaw kay nga tubig sa baso, and then eventually ang gawas ana niya, ang gawas sa baso kay mo sweat out. It's because the water vapor that is found in the atmosphere mag-condense na siya, no, and it will stick into the glass. Oh, so ganan kay siya mag-adhere. That's a property of hydrogen bonds, Jude. And then ang imuha yung H2O na molecule, each molecule are they like each other. Mo nang na ay cohesion. Nga naman, because your water is partially naa siya partial positive and partial negative nga charges. Your oxygen, I'll change the color ha. Let's change the color of the ink. Okay. Ang oxygen is partially negative, so that's partially negative. And ang imuhang hydrogen is partially positive. Now, as you've learned sa previous lessons ninyo, like charges repel, opposite charges attract. So, kung naapay usa ka water molecule, kining partially negative na part ni water molecule loves to bond with your partially positive side sa hydrogen. And kini yung hydrogen na partially positive, ganahan na siya makigbond sa partially negative na oxygen sa another water molecule. So that is cohesion. So, kana siya, your cohesion tension and cohesion adhesion, kana siya, that is part of your water transpiring, pasaka into the leaves, no? So when it transpires, mo evaporate na siya, but not all. So the tree or the plant will risk it. Iha siyang i-risk ang evaporation para lang musaka ang tubig paingon sa leaves. Kay kailangan man siya for photosynthesis. Ana. So that is transpiration. Okay. And then how about translocation? Translocation talks about your transport of nutrients, no? Transport of sugars. Pero dili lang sugars, there are a lot more other things. So ang imuhang kuan, dini siya, it happens in the phloem, no? So, imong phloem kay naa siya'y companion cells. Ang imong companion cells basically, ay, molo ganing tubo, maning tubo sa phloem, no? This is the sieve tube. Ang sieve tube is basically made of like dead cells, and then your companion cell is alive. Your companion cell is important because it is the one that will serve as sort of like your membrane. It will serve as your membrane, but basically it's also is your kanang nutrients, no? So, let's go to the next slide. Mas better tingali na siya. So, among herbaceous plants with flexible bodies, stem contains bundles of xylem and phloem called vascular sila. And then, kani siya, let's go back here. Dinhi siya, magkuan ni siya. For example, ang imhang plant, it needs to grow pataas, no? So, sometimes si companion cell, maingon siya nga, uy, I need sugar. So, let's produce some sugars. It will get the sugars from photosynthesis. So, for example, na ay accumulation of sugar din hi. Pero sa sugar, kailangan siya musaka. Kung saan man niya pagsaka? How does it go up? Na wala man siya valves. Saan man na siya? So, si phloem, manghulam siya sa xylem og tubig. Ano siya nga, huy, xylem, baro kog tubig, be. Ano, xylem nga naman. Siya nga, kailangan musaka si sugar paingon sa taas kay kailangan ni siya para sa cellular respiration didto. Ano xylem o sige. So si xylem because xylem and phloem they are permeable, no, meaning kuan sila kanang pwede na ay makasulod nga solutions. So sa xylem, mag-donate siya tubig, ipadala diri, then ang tubig, of course, there is an increase of pressure here. Ang tubig dayon, together with the sugar, musaka din na siya. Chuk, ana. So mao nang ingon ako ganina, si phloem not only handles sugars, but it also handles water. But majorly sugars yun na siya. Majorly sugars and other solutes. So, kung dili na kailangan ni kuan, kung dili na din yun kailangan ni what do you call this? Ni phloem, ipabalik na niya ang tubig kang xylem. Thank you, xylem. Ano siya? Xylem, you're welcome. O, muna ng trabaho nila. They're synergistic. They help each other out. So, dicotyledons, you can just look at this. Basta ang pasabot na jud ani niya kay kining vascular bundles which is comprised of your xylem and phloem, no? They are differently arranged from dicots to monocots. So ang dicots arranged ni siya in a way nga kanang naka-center siya, no? Ana siya. It's very very arranged. Whereas sa monocots scattered siya. It's like this. So manang ka ng mga trees, ka ng mango, let's say for example, ka ng mango trees. Mango trees are dicots, no? So mauna vascular bundles are right in the middle of the tree. So kung nasamad gyud na ang mango tree nimo kanang gamay lang, dili na siya dito matay. But if it reaches the middle, ayan na din siya mamatay. Kaya naman dito imuhang xylem and phloem. Kung sa kwan gani, monocots, dali na sa mga matay. Kaya ang ilahang, what do you call this, vascular bundles, they're not centralized. So that's why. Okay. Yay! So that's the end. Ayan. So, I hope that you've learned something about the circulatory system today. So just to recap, today we talked about the circulatory system, but we focused a lot on the animals because animals have, quite complex circulatory systems. You have your open and your closed circulatory systems. When you say open, meaning wala sila arteries and veins, there are no differentiations. Therefore, or not unidirectional, but kung ano na siya kanang dili kayo efficient ang ilahang oxygenated blood distribution. So when that happens, low ang blood pressure sa mga open CS. So if low ang blood pressure, low sad ang tanan processes, low ang metabolism, low ang locomotion, low tanan. That will be the opposite of for the closed circulatory system. The opposite will be observed. And then we learned a lot about our own hearts and our own koan and our own circulations. So I hope you still remember that. And also we learned that plants also have a circulatory system, but they don't have a heart. Let's say heart, no? So ang ilang well, let's say pumping action, but the way that they transport is dependent on the transpiration and translocation. Transpiration happens in your xylem because it majorly involves your water, and then translocation involves the nutrients. So ang involved ano niya would be your phloem. Okay, so that will be all for this morning. Are there any questions, suggestions, violent reactions, volcanic eruptions?